everybody. Welcome to one more edition of Design to Heal. It's Paul here in Barcelona. We're doing inside today because it's very cold and very windy today outside. And so I would like to give you some feedback on from many people who have commented on the my latest postings. And I wanted to focus on three different postings. The first one is the one about Gen Z and younger millennials who grew up, and there was a lot of kinship. A lot of people in that age group, like 22 to 35, very much related to being a guinea pig of the iPhone generation. And I think, to be frank, there are a lot of things going on with that generation when they were born, and the years in which they grew up, especially those born like in 1990, 1992, 96, where we had a lot of terrible things happening, right? I'll just give you a timeline, right? 1999 was the Columbine massacre. 2001 was the 9/11 and the beginning of the war on terrorism. 2003 was the beginning of the Iraq War. 2005 was Hurricane Katrina, and that was a lightning rod for all of the anxiety about climate change. 2007 was the beginning of the great financial crisis, which spread into the end of 2007 all the way into 2008. And it's kind of been with us ever since, right? And then 2010 was the European crisis, and this is what this generation grew up with. And then 2012 came, and that was the iPhone. And this generation very much feels like in a world full of turmoil with school shootings, climate change, the endless wars, right? The forever wars, and financial crises, and people having their homes taken away, millions of people having their homes taken away, and a lot of the unfairness and the unjustness of it all really has created a generation that is very angry. And I think we can say with some degree of accuracy that I'm going to say that I think in talking with dozens and dozens of people between 22 and say 35 about all these individual issues, and sort of seeing really what is the main lightning rod. When we're dealing with EMDR, we want to get to a core event, a core issue, to see where a lot of the train sort of left the station and got into motion, and this has cascading effects on other issues. And so we want eventually to get to the tip of the spear in EMDR to see what is going on. And I think what is going on here essentially is, yes, all of these things are terrible. We have to learn how to live with it. We have to learn how to live with, random economic events over which we have no control, over this calamity of climate change, over school shootings, and so forth. And yet I think I feel very confident in saying over and over again, I hear people say, yes, those are all important. But the thing that has really screwed me up in terms of my levels of anxiety, these feelings of trauma, my feeling of isolation or depression, especially post-COVID, is in my obsession and the addiction and the trauma that I have seen and heard on my cell phone in two ways. One is with pornography, the other is with unabated, endless types of goriness, tragedy, stuff that normal news would never allow on any kind of news channel on CNN or MSNBC or even Fox, right? They just wouldn't allow these scenes of goriness to appear on television, or else you would get a very serious, warning, that if children are present, they might want to leave the room. And so I think the social media contamination of these people, and I assure you, I think they very much feel like they have been guinea pigs of this failed iPhone experiment. And so that is where we really need to start to dig in terms of saying, aha, X marks the spot. This is where a lot of the dysfunctionality, the compulsive behavior, the inability to form relationships, the feelings of isolation and depression, the sense of detachment, the difficulty that young men and women have in their 20s and 30s with forming relationships, the unhealthy attachment that a lot of men have to pornographic sex that is fetishized and turned into, I guess for lack of a better word, turned into, fetishistic kink or elements that are degrading or humiliating, and trying to translate that into sexuality and sex, which is a reflection of intimacy with the woman, is for this generation, I guarantee you, a very difficult thing. The other part of this is that these very same men understand, and they see in front of them, the reality that more and more women are finishing universities and fewer men are finishing universities, and more women are getting really good jobs and are getting a good paycheck. And women have I think it's part of the built-in genetic desire to find a mate that is equally suitable or better. And so I think that this is where we are having greater societal difficulty with the double whammy of men who feel inadequate or insufficient in terms of being able to express their sense of intimacy or sexuality, growing up on an extensive menu of pornography starting as early as 10 or 11. And on the other hand, we need to sort of start to figure out, where we are going with finding ways to allow more men to matriculate all the way through university and not to drop out. Because this is a big problem when you have too many men who are isolated, depressed. They're not making very much income. They're not equaling to their desired female standard. And females, on the other hand, are not only staying equal, they're surpassing in so many different parameters: the income, the education, the quality of life, the savings, the future trajectory compared to men. And so this is, something which is a bit of a cauldron in society. And I think a lot of the 2024 election was about this, where, President-elect Trump is promising these men a solution to their problem by trying to thin out the workforce in favor of, in favor of white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, evangelical men. I don't know. It just seems like that's where a lot of this is going, and to the detriment of immigrants, Latinos, Asians, women, LGBT, and so forth. And so this happens, all the time with populist movements, where blame the foreigner is a way for the local population to reassert itself in the workforce and in the pecking order and in the halls of power. And so I think that we need to have a much better discussion about this. And what I do with the EMDR, with mostly right now with men, I've only worked with two women on this, and those issues, I have to say, were not related to cell phone pornography at all. They were quite different issues. And so I want to say that my experience so far is, while women certainly have their own demons with, early onset, pornographic viewing, at 10, 11, 12, it certainly is, highly problematic and very common with young men and men who are now in their 20s and early 30s and who are trying to figure out a way to recalibrate their understanding of sexuality. And EMDR is a really terrific way to do this because you're going back and you're looking at those, you're examining those traumatic moments, and you're seeing what kind of emotions are created and what beliefs begin to come into play as people move into adulthood. And these beliefs are often very negative beliefs about themselves, about their bodies, about uh, what is the role of sex and sexuality. And so these beliefs can be recalibrated and reprocessed and re-understood in a much healthier way by understanding where they come from. A lot of men don't understand where they come from, and it has its roots in the negative self-talk and the negative self-belief that comes from the early viewing of profound amounts of pornography in early years, and then go and also just the general level of anxiety and stress of seeing all these fabulous people doing fabulous things with fabulous drinks and fabulous locations on fabulous vacations, reinforcing low self-esteem and low self-confidence. And so this EMDR clearly can unwind this and allow people to have a much better sense of themselves. And also, part of it is a reprocessing is a not just a replacement of better memories or of good memories, but a recognition at the time of doing the EMDR is that these young men have indeed come a long way. They've overcome a lot. They're a very, very tough generation, right? We forget that. And that's something that is really important, is to reinforce these notion, is to recognize in front of people's eyes that they are very capable people. They've come a long way. They've overcome a lot of obstacles. A lot of them have profound mental health problems in their lives and in their families. And they've overcome all of these issues of school shootings and the pandemic and this social media uh, uh, guinea pig experiment gone terribly wrong. And they have managed to get a good degree of education in, and they are very bright. And in many ways, even without university education, some of them are the most educated people in the world because they've been looking at news and sports and information and technology and space and archaeology and astronomy and medicine. It's just booming at you through the internet, and I didn't have anywhere near this kind of exposure, to all of these different sciences by the time I was, say 16 for sure. None of it was available. And so we need to give a tremendous amount of credit and recognition to this generation who are indeed very, very tough people. They've been very much toughened by the difficulties they've had growing up, especially because they know people or certainly may even have family members who've gone through war and have come back as veterans or never came back or themselves have gone to war and are facing life. And so the EMDR is looking at the past with eyes wide open, assessing what beliefs were created at the time that disturbing traumatic activities were happening, um, and then moving forward to ask some very difficult questions about the legitimacy of these beliefs, or even whether they are appropriate anymore, or whether they work anymore, and what other beliefs do we currently see that we can claim as true, and to reassess and to um, recalibrate these beliefs into a better system. And that's really the kernel of EMDR. And I know I've been teaching young men and women in MBA programs for 24 years, and so I've been listening and talking to them for 24 years. And my sense was that I felt something really breaking between 2017 and 2018. I felt something really breaking in terms of I've had it with all of this experimentation and all this iPhone overwhelm and the politics and the climate and the school shootings. And so I think this crisis, it has been, simmering for at least, 7 or 8 years. So I think now we're at a point where we need to address it in a much more comprehensive way. And one of the ways I would submit is using EMDR. I think talk therapy has had its time. It's had its place in the sun. I think it doesn't work because, EMDR connects the amphibious back of the brain with the human front of the brain and its frontal lobe. And talk therapy, it has a very difficult time trying to make the lizard brain talk to the frontal brain. MDR is precisely designed to do this. And so that's all for today. I'll have a little bit more on the other two issues, the feedback that we got from the early sexual abuse issues in schools, and then also mom. We're going to talk about mom this week as well, and the feedback from that. So happy day. We are designed to heal no matter how far down you go. I see with my own eyes all the time this magnificent capacity for us to heal. Okay, happy day.